It's 2026. Can you believe it? We are in a new year, and I want to help make the best money year yet for you. And I don't mean by setting super vague resolutions like save more or spend less. I'm talking about creating a real momentum, building a strong financial foundation, finding smarter ways to tackle debt, saving more than you thought was possible, and finally, spending your money how you want to spend it. I'm Meagan McGuire, CFP Professional, Chartered Financial Consultant, and Student Loan Professional of SLP Wealth, which is my financial planning firm that works specifically with professionals and doctors who have large amounts of student loan debt. So whether your plan is to retire early, pay off your credit card debt, change careers, or move to a whole new city, we want to help you live the life of your dreams. And that sounds a little cheesy, but it's true. I want that for you. If you are a high income earning professional, let's say a physician, a dentist, a veterinarian, a therapist, you probably earn well into the six figures, but between student loans, taxes, and lifestyle demands, it still may feel like you're kind of stuck on a treadmill. Let's change that. First and foremost, the most practical advice here is you really want to get crystal clear on your foundation. And that means knowing exactly what's coming in, income-wise, and what's going out the door, expense-wise, and where every dollar is going. And this is not to restrict you or to shame you or to make you feel negative about your money situation, but it's more so to take control and have awareness of where money is going. For physicians and dentists, your income can vary based on production or call schedules. For therapists or veterinarians, your earnings might be consistent, but they could also be capped, but you might also earn commissions. There's a lot of things that kind of go into your income situations. But either way, clarity is power. It really is. And we tell clients to start by reviewing the last 3 months of your spending. Let's start short and sweet. We don't have to go back all into 2025, but let's start looking at the past expenses for the past 3 months. Don't judge it, just really absorb it and figure out, okay, where was I spending my time and attention and my money? Then you want to assign each expense a purpose. Is this building wealth? Is this maintaining your lifestyle? Does this make you happy to spend money on or not? Anything that doesn't fit those categories is maybe the first place to start to trim if we need to. So, and I'm not saying everybody who does this exercise needs to trim or cut expenses, but it is a healthy exercise, just like cleaning out your closet every so often. It's a healthy exercise to trim expenses over time, have like a regular schedule to just kind of check in with yourself, because a lot of lazy spending can happen, and that could be wasteful. That could be money going towards your goals to help you get to your dreams a lot faster. So that's why this is important. A strong foundation also means really having the right safety nets in place. So you want to have your emergency fund that truly fits your lifestyle and your income funded. I know emergency funds are boring and they're supposed to be boring. They're supposed to be boring. It's supposed to be there to fall on so you don't have to fall on a credit card for unexpected or big bills that come out of the blue. Or if you're out of work unexpectedly because you decided you needed to change, or your employer decided you needed to change, or you're hurt or injured. So for most high income earners, think about this 3 to 6 months as really just your safety blanket. It is the fund that you can lean on if things really just don't go your way. And it can bring you a lot of peace of mind, can help you sleep better at night. If you feel super confident in your ability to find a new job at a moment's notice, or if maybe you're a dual income household, 3 months of emergency reserves is probably totally appropriate. If you are a business owner or practice owner, or your income is super variable, your industry is a little right now, you don't really know the fate of the industry, maybe unemployment isn't looking awesome, then maybe we want to be closer to the 6 month range just to give you a lot of flexibility for if you're out of work or if you're having really hard times for a longer period of time. All right, so we talked about how to build our foundation. Let's talk about ways to reduce debt, things that are eating away at your ability to grow wealth. Let's talk about student loans first, because I know for a lot of you, that's the biggest mental and financial hurdle that you have. If you are a physician or a dentist with multiple figures of student loan debt, one of the best things you can do for yourself in 2026 is to stop guessing about what to do with your loan situation. The rules around loan forgiveness and income-driven repayment and refinancing have changed a lot in the last few years. Choosing the wrong game plan or kind of being paralyzed by not knowing what to do, not having a strategy can literally cost you tens of thousands of dollars. One example of this is pretty darn aggressive, but it is a very common example I come into contact with in our day-to-day here as financial planners and student loan experts. I worked with a client who lives in a community property state. So community property state, if you don't know, that's one of the 9 states in the US that basically, when you are filing taxes, you could either file married jointly or married separately. If we are filing married separately, a community property state looks at your income as a household, so you and your spouse's income, adds it together, and takes that total income, divides it in half between your two tax returns evenly. There's some exceptions or some things that can't totally be split, so it may not be perfectly even, depending on if one spouse is a practice owner or business owner or both of you are. But what that does is it creates some planning opportunities in student loan repayment. So let me explain. The 9 community property states generally are on the Pacific coast or the Mexico border, except for Oregon and Wisconsin. It's almost like they traded places. But if you live in one of these states, then you live in a community property state. This client of mine was the breadwinner for their household. They were making about, let's just use easy numbers, 200,000 a year, and their spouse was a teacher making about 50,000 a year. So the spouse making the most money, they are the ones that had the large student loan debt. We were going towards loan forgiveness through PSLF or public service loan forgiveness for them. And they were originally filing taxes married jointly because spouse's income was not a ton. And so, yes, the payment would be off of joint income if we're filing taxes jointly, but it didn't seem in their minds to make sense to file taxes separately. Alas, in community property states, we know that basically the system, it will add your income together. So 200,000 plus 50,000. Our household income was 250,000. If we're filing jointly, that student loan payment, if we're on an income-driven plan, would be based off of $250,000. That payment on new IBR, which is one of the cheaper income-driven plans, is $1,820 a month. What this client didn't realize is in a community property state, the income is split like we talked about. So 250,000 split between two returns evenly in this case is 125,000 reported on their tax return, the breadwinner's tax return, and 125,000 reported on the teacher's tax return. If we're filing separately, income-based repayment is only going to use the separate, like the borrower's income. So the payment was based off of $125,000 from last year's tax return if we were filing taxes married separately using this community property split. That payment would be $777. So we go from $1,800 down to $777. That's $1,000 of savings, $1,100 of savings that I saved you in a month by knowing the rules of how community property states work, the value of filing separately. And this is going to help save them a ton of money when they're working towards loan forgiveness. And we can redirect that extra $1,000 towards something else, like their dream house, if that was one of the goals that they had on their goal list. So super exciting situation, but this is why having the right student loan plan and getting the right advice about what to do with your student loans is crucial. Because if you follow, some other talking heads out there, their advice would just be pay off the $250,000. Well, in this case, PSLF is at play, and we could get our student loan payment down very low. At the end of the day, our payoff compared to loan forgiveness numbers would look something like this. If we went on new IBR, which we are eligible for in this situation, we filed taxes married separately, that payment is going to be that $777 a month. And if I scroll down to PSLF, if that's relevant, over 10 years, 120 payments with that income maybe inflated with adjusted for inflation, let's say that total cost is $106,000, almost $107,000, net present value being maybe about $85,000, compared to paying the loans off. If you listen to that talking head and just went ahead and went and refinanced those loans, paid them off over 10 years, let's say, we would have paid more than double to go that route versus lean on the student loan system, understand the options, the little levers we can pull to show efficiency in our plan, and we're saving $150,000 compared to maybe the payoff example. So huge win for my client there and huge savings in somebody's plan to help you get to your goals a lot faster. So beyond loans, I know that's student loan focused, student loan heavy right there, but beyond loans, look for creative ways to redirect dead money. Things like high interest credit cards or private student loans. You want to find ways to save money on these things or avoid things like paying high interest on credit cards by paying your credit cards off in full every single month. With private student loans, you could look at refinancing to try to lower your interest rate. You can negotiate or renegotiate your terms, or even use employer benefits more strategically to help have money go towards maybe your student loans, for example, your private loans in this case. But hospitals and clinics and universities, they now offer student loan repayment benefits, and most people don't even take advantage of them. And that might be something that could be moving the needle towards getting to your goals and your dreams a lot faster. Things like avoiding credit card debt, avoiding personal debt. Really, that first step we talked about, building a healthy foundation and understanding where money is going on a month-to-month basis, can prevent debt in the first place. So these things are very crucial. Avoiding debt is super helpful to help you grow and build your wealth a lot faster. Next, let's talk about the fun stuff, which is saving. Saving a large amount of money. For what? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about savings, because saving more doesn't mean you're living less. I think sometimes that's what people equate it to. It means aligning your savings with your goals better. So for a dentist who wants to buy into a practice, that might mean building up liquidity for that future big investment. For a therapist planning to open a private practice one day, that might mean creating a 6-month runway, an emergency savings, to feel secure leaving their current W-2 regular paying job role. So I like to think of having savings in 3 buckets. One would be in your short-term goals bucket. So things that you'd want to do or want to accomplish in the next 1 to 2 years, like travel, maybe a down payment for a home, maybe super expensive concert tickets. You want to make sure that these things, and these are usually the things that bring you a lot of life, right? They're things that you want to do soon that you really look forward to. So short-term goals, that's the first bucket we want to be thinking about saving for and planning on having money for. Then we get to our midterm goals, like maybe a practice buy-in or a business opportunity in the future, things that may come before retirement, but maybe not in the next year or two. So those are things that are also goals that you look forward to, but aren't as instant as maybe that short-term bucket we're talking about. And then we have the long-term goals, and that's retirement. That's financial independence, which just in my mind means you don't have to work anymore to support yourself. You can live off of what you've saved from your investments or from your savings. Long-term goals could just mean early freedom. Early freedom could mean a lot of things. Maybe working part-time instead of full-time, working a totally different job with a much lower pay because you just really love that thing, whatever it is. So the long-term goals can be a lot of different things. That's what's fun about planning, is it's your long-term goal. But the practical 2026 challenge, what you'll want to do is start to aim to save 30% of your take-home income. I'm saying 30% because that is a stretch goal. I usually say 20% or more. I want you to get to your dreams faster. So let's shoot for a stretch goal of 30% of your take-home income. Again, don't let this number scare you. This includes, for right now, it can include debt payments. So payments that you're having to make to pay down debt so you can get to the other side of that and to get to where you can be saving more and investing more in your future. This will include retirement contributions, and this includes savings for those short or midterm goals that you have. And when you look at it that way, it's often more achievable than maybe it sounds on its surface, because 30% sounds like a lot. If you can automate your saving, for example, you automate transferring money into your brokerage account or your savings account right after each paycheck, automatic bill pay, you'll save without even thinking about it. And that's a great way to trick yourself into thinking that the money that's left in your checking account at the end of the month, that is all the money that you have to spend. But guess what? You hid a lot of money from yourself by setting up these auto contributions into these savings accounts, and it's already gone. You didn't have to make the active decision to do that. So that's oftentimes a lot. Very helpful. All right, part 4 to this conversation is spending money how you want to spend it. The ultimate goal isn't just financial stability, it is financial freedom. You should be able to spend your money on what you want without guilt or without anxiety. And once your foundation is really strong and your debt is under control, you can start making these value-based spending decisions. And that means asking, does this spending align with what matters most to me? How I like to say it is, because you'll have to say no. And I think women especially, we're having to learn to say no a lot more and more frequently. But saying no doesn't mean, it doesn't have to be a negative thing. So let's say we're saying no to something in our budget. I think the way to reframe it in your mind is we're saying no to that thing, but it's because we're saying yes to something we care a lot more about. So, for example, let's say your friend invites you to a concert impromptu, or we see this ad on Instagram for this really cool, cozy couch and we want to purchase it. It's making us want to purchase it. If we're saying no to those things because we're thinking about like our goals in a very grounded way, we're saying yes to what you care more about. So that's saying yes to buying into your practice as soon as possible, or saying yes to that really expensive but really lovely family vacation that you want to provide for you and your 5 family members. It's saying yes to those things that really light you up versus a less meaningful, kind of sporadic purchase decision that really takes that more meaningful thing off the table. So that's how I like to look at it versus like just saying no to things. It's more so I'm saying no so I can say yes to this thing over here that I care a lot more about. I've seen physicians who want to work fewer shifts, therapists who want a lot more flexibility to take summer off with their kids. I've seen veterinarians who want to spend a lot more time at home instead of chasing extra income or moonlighting, and that goes for physicians too. Those aren't just lifestyle choices, they're financial goals as well. So if you're wanting those things, let's align our spending with those things as well. So when your money plan reflects your values, you stop feeling like you're constantly behind and you start feeling a lot more in control. All right, so let's close things up. If you want to make 2026 your best money year yet, focus on these 4 critical things. 1, build a clear, flexible financial foundation. And I say flexible because you have to be able to pivot. Life changes, life be lifing. So we can have a plan. You want to know how to pivot if that plan gets a little off course, but still keeps you on track. Number 2, use smart, strategic approaches to reduce your debt. So that student loan conversation I had earlier, man, that saved us a lot of money. That $1,000, $1,100 that they would have been paying is definitely going to help them get to that travel goal a lot faster. Or at least, maybe it means taking 1 less shift a month because they don't have to have that extra income. So use smart and strategic approaches to reduce your debt. Take a look at all of your debt very critically to see if there's any ways that you can help reduce it in a better, more efficient way. Number 3, create systems that make savings feel super easy and automatic. So if you are a W-2 person, that could mean opting into your 401k plan by a percentage or a dollar amount per paycheck, and whoop, that money goes straight there. If you are a business owner, that can mean that you set up auto drafts from your checking account to go straight into your retirement plan or your brokerage account or your savings account on the 1st and the 15th of every month, whenever you pay yourself or whenever you get withdrawals from the business. Automate as much as you can so the money is gone out of here and into those savings buckets for those savings goals. And lastly, number 4, you want to be spending more intentionally on what truly matters to you. So if you're ready to go deeper and create a financial plan that actually fits your life, not just the numbers on the paper, that's exactly what we do at SLP Wealth. Check the link in the description to learn more about us and make sure you subscribe here so you don't miss future videos in this series. Here's to making 2026 your strongest, most confident financial year yet. I'll cheers with my water bottle, and I'll catch you on the next one.